Tefari Bailey is the founder and CEO of Hutsy Financial, a fast-growing fintech platform on a mission to close the wealth gap for underserved communities. Since launching, Hutsy's grown 30% month over month, has raised over $2.5 million in funding, and has saved customers millions in overdraft and late fees. And after securing a whopping $500,000 investment on Dragon's Den, the company's become a rising force in Canada's startup ecosystem, with its sight clearly set on becoming a unicorn SaaS company. A non-technical founder who started as a bank teller, Tefari turned his lived experiences into leadership and proved that you don't need to code to build something that changes lives. Named Young Entrepreneur of the Year by the Black Founders Network, the winner of Startup Fest, the Top Youth Entrepreneur Award, among many others, Tefari is building a movement rooted in equity, in access, and the understanding that anyone can lead innovation if they're just willing to start. This is Tefari Bailey. And this is the other Canada. Tefari, thank you so much for being here with us today. Really excited to have you on the show.
Danny, thank you so much. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Thanks to you and the entire FACE team. I'm really looking forward to sharing my story today.
Absolutely. And your story is an amazing one. You know, many people know you from receiving a $500,000 investment from West Hall on the Dragon's Den, but there's so much to your story. What do people need to know about Tefari Bailey in order to understand this conversation?
Most definitely. You're absolutely right. That is how most people know me. That is from the $500,000 investment we received from West Hall and his team on Dragon's Den. What people do need to know and should know about me is that wasn't my first venture. I've tried so many things and I failed at so many things, and I've learned from various things, such as starting a marketing agency, a job employment agency, a snow removal company that didn't work out. There was just so many things along the way that led me to starting Hutsy.
Beautiful. And it's always like that. It's a long journey, right? And even if we take it all the way back to the beginning, you grew up in Rexdale. And, I think that many people who make it to the big leagues often know that they're going to be hitting for that home run, right? They always see themselves in that future vision. Can you share a little bit about the younger version of Tefari? How you were growing up in Rexdale and kind of what some of those early steps were?
Most definitely. Me growing up in Rexdale, I had no idea or no desire to be a businessman or an entrepreneur or anything of that nature.
Okay.
I wanted to go to the NBA. I focused all my time, energy, and effort on sports. It would be to the point where I would wake up in the morning, go to school early, shoot some hoops. At lunch, not even eat, shoot some hoops.
Wow.
After school, go home, get a quick snack, come back to school, and shoot some hoops, to the point where the janitor would have to threaten to call the police on me and my friends if we continue to trespass in school after hours to play basketball in the gym. We were addicted. It was night and day. That's all we did. That's all we knew. And that's how I grew up. And I find that a lot of the skills that I learned playing basketball, being a part of a team atmosphere, being coached, being a team captain, being a leader, translated very well to being an entrepreneur and made me the person that I am today.
Beautiful. And so how long did you play ball until? So like from that young age until, what age did you start moving in another direction?
It would definitely be my first year of university. That's when I stopped playing basketball. My peak was really high school for the most part. As I mentioned, I'd be playing night and day. My team was so strong. We were a tight-knit family. Even in the summertime, we'd get together every day and train, run hills, work out, do cardio, travel to various gyms to play basketball together. And we really built that bond. We built that community. And it translated on the court. In our senior year, we were undefeated. I believe I was number one in scoring in the Greater Toronto area with a 56-point game. And as I mentioned, in my first year of university, I realized, okay, Tefari, you're not going to the NBA. Why don't you do something that'll actually add value into this world? And I shifted my energy into entrepreneurship. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of those skills translated. Instead of waking up at 5 or 6 a.m. to go to the gym, I'm waking up at 5 or 6 a.m. to work on my craft, but not on the court, but for my business. Instead of managing my team to get together and do some training, an actual team, managing my team, putting them in a situation to succeed. Hey, you're great at coding. Maybe you should be a coder. You're great at sales. Maybe you should be your sales representative.
Mm-hmm.
You're great at talking to customers. Why don't you be a customer service representative? So I find a lot of things on the sports side translated to entrepreneurship. Don't quote me on this, but I do remember reading a quote saying something along the lines of, at least 50% of CEOs from Fortune 500 companies played at a high level sports in college or university.
That's not surprising at all, you know? And when we think of all of our younger nephews, cousins, sons who are in that sport, and oftentimes we're thinking, oh my goodness, maybe you're not going to make it to the NBA. You know, we want to encourage them, but we're worried that they're not going to. It's really refreshing to hear that those skills are transferable and can materialize into other spaces in this way. So what was your first step? So you're at Brock University, and what was your first entrepreneurial endeavor, and why entrepreneurship? Or were you working first? Like, what happened first?
Great question. So why I got into the entrepreneurship space? Number one, rent isn't free. Tuition isn't free. I needed money for that. So ultimately, I went to school at Brock University in St. Catharines, Ontario. I consider that a university town. What I mean by university town is it's not populated with locals. It's populated with students that are just there for the sole purpose of going to school.
Yep.
Schools I would consider in that bracket, Brock University, Waterloo, Western, etc. So normally in the summertime, individual students, they go back home to wherever they're from, whether that be Toronto, Mississauga, Brampton, Ottawa, wherever that may be. But I decided to actually stay in the summertime as I had 3 friends who were all entrepreneurs. And they needed a 4th roommate. So I decided to stay there and live with them and actually learn the ropes, see how things went. And when it came to the next year, when I wanted to start a business, I remembered one of my old basketball coaches. His name was Coach K. He had a snow removal business, and I remember he would keep us all up, a lot of members on the team, until 11, 12, 1 a.m., and we'd be shoveling snow for him for his clients. So I figured, okay, I know how to do that. I've done it before. I've seen Coach K do this, and he's kind of taught us the ropes. So why not do the same thing in St. Catharines? So I bought it to my roommates. We had an idea. We posted ads on Kijiji. And then one of the largest, if not the largest, property rental management company reached out to us.
Oh, wow.
I booked a meeting with him. I took one of my roommates there. I talked a big game. I told them that we had a plow. We'd be able to handle the hundreds of homes that they wanted us to shovel. They offered us a 6-figure contract. Me and my roommate bought it home to our roommates. It was only 4 of us living together, slapped it on the table, and we all just sat there and laughed because there was absolutely no way we'd be able to fulfill that. We had 1 car, 1 shovel, and there was 4 of us. So that was really the motivation to let me know that anything is actually possible. Anything is actually possible. You can control your own destiny. It's all really sales, how you communicate, and leverage at the end of the day.
Beautiful. Okay, so what were some of the different things that you can remember that you said in that conversation that shifted the needle? And do you use any of those today?
For sure. Number one was listening. Listening and trying to identify the problems that they were facing. What problems do you face, and what solutions could we provide, and how could we provide those solutions in an efficient way and articulate it to you to show that we'd be able to provide you the most possible value and maximize your return on investment with us. And that's something that we still do to this day.
Amazing. And so when you brought it back to your team and it's there and you're figuring out, how are we going to solve this? You know, did you actually fulfill the contract? Did you make the plan? How did that pan out?
No, not at all. We brought it back home and we all had a 5-minute laugh and said there was no way we would be able to fulfill this. We told the individual that we were too booked, and we never looked back at it. And that was just a fun project for us. We didn't start the project. We didn't shovel any snow, but that was just the aha moment that we could really do something in the entrepreneurship. Not necessarily in that field, in the labor or snow removal, but that anything is possible in entrepreneurship. And that's what motivated me to start other ventures.
Okay, and so what was next?
What was next was an organization by the name of Job Prep, because in the summertime, people are here, they need to work, they need to pay rent. So I thought, okay, why don't we build resumes for people and apply for jobs for individuals? So we had that organization. It was named Job Prep. I had that organization for about a month or so. I would meet individuals, get their story, build their resume, apply for jobs for them, help them secure jobs. We charge $20 for it. But the math wasn't mathing.
Okay.
Doing 10 hours worth of work for a $20 fee.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I scrapped that. Something that you really want to do as an entrepreneur is you want to fail fast.
Mm-hmm.
You want to launch fast and you want to fail fast and know when to pull the plug and know when to pivot. So these were all growing pains along the way. So as you asked me, you said, no, most people know you from Dragon's Den. What else should they know about you is that I've started a lot of business ventures. I've learned, I failed, I've moved on quickly, and I wouldn't even necessarily consider them failures and starting over. I would consider those learning experiences. So I wasn't necessarily starting over, but I was starting over from experience.
Yes, absolutely. And it sounded like in that experience, what you understood was something about unit economics. Maybe you can share a little bit about how that lesson kind of fed into, your experiences at Hutsy and in your future businesses.
For sure, most definitely. And when I say unit economics, I mean, what is it costing you to acquire a customer? What is it costing you in terms of work that you're doing? And what is the return that you're getting? And me, I'm in software, technology, financial services. We have a standard rule, which is a 3-to-1, meaning for every dollar you spend, you should hope to return $3 during the lifetime value or relationship with that client. And the sooner you could do it, the better. If you could make that 3x back within the first day, holy grail. Ideally, you want to do that within 6 to 12 months. So that's all I look to optimize for with the businesses that I start.
That makes so much sense. And so that initial resume business, when you say the math wasn't mathing, that's kind of what you meant.
So if it was, we were losing money on everything in terms of time. We were losing money in terms of time. And then after that, I started a digital marketing agency. Let's rewind.
Okay.
I started a property rental management company, and that was my first success. So as I mentioned, Brock was a university town. We would have to sign 12-month leases. School would start in September, and it would end in April. So then you have May, June, July, August, you're paying rent for, and you're not living there. And I lived in a place by the name of The Lofts. We were spending $600 a month for rent. There was 4 roommates, or 4 people living in every loft. So I would go up to them and say, hey, let me book a meeting with you and your whole household. You guys are leaving for 4 months. You're paying $600 a month for a room. I'll give you each $200, which would be $800 for the unit. Doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're a broke college student like we all were, made a lot of sense. It really helped out. So we scored most of those deals. And then a lot of people would be in summer school, and I would sublease it out to them. Hey, this normally goes for $600 a month, but I'll give you a 4-month lease for $400 a month. So you're saving $200. And then 2, 4, 6, 8 per loft. That really helped out when it came to the next year. So I was able to pay my tuition and my rent. So that was the first aha moment that this worked.
That's amazing. So it sounds like in the very first experience, you learned that you could secure deals through, a really strong sales pitch. The second one, you had some learnings in terms of unit economics. And then this third experience, you're able to identify opportunities and use cases and see opportunities for growth.
That is absolutely correct.
It's kind of interesting because, spoiler alert, I know the ending of how this story flows, but we can always see things kind of backwards, right? What happened next, and how does all of this information play into what you learned and what you applied at Hutsy?
Quick question. So what happened next is I always envisioned myself working in financial services. My dream job was to work at TD, and I've been applying to work at TD for many years, and I would never hear back, or I would get rejection emails. So one day, bold, hot summer, I took the chance and I figured out what was the largest TD bank in St. Catharines. It was at the Penn Center, Glendale. I walked into the branch and I said, can I speak to the branch manager? At that time, I'll never forget the individual's name. It was Philip Fernandez. He was the branch manager at that location. I spoke with him. He only had about 10 to 15 minutes for me, but we ended up talking for 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
I expressed myself to him. I told him growing up, I grew up in a low-income area, family living paycheck to paycheck. Mother would just put food on the table for me and not herself. As a single mother, it was really tough. And I wanted to dedicate my life to serving people and building better, safer, faster financial products like what they're doing at TD, and ensuring nobody had to go through the same thing that I seen my family go through. And he really resonated with my story, hired me on the spot. It told me that everything is full at the moment. They have no available slots. However, when something does become available, I had to get the job.
Yeah.
Fast forward a couple of weeks later, I get a call from TD informing me that, hey, there isn't an open availability at the branch that you went to, but we heard your story from Philip Fernandez. We really resonate with you. We have an opening in Welland. Would you like to take that opportunity? And I was living in St. Catharines. Welland was the next city over. And I jumped on it. I felt that I achieved my life's goal of working as a teller at a major financial institution, at that one in specifically. And then my sports mindset came in. I realized, okay, in sports, I always want to dominate. I always want to be the best. I always want our team to win. So let's translate this into the real world. And I want to say that I was able to do that. As my first 4 quarters, to put into perspective, number 1 was a training quarter. Number 2, I was number 1 in my branch in terms of sales revenue. 3rd quarter, I was number 1 in my district in terms of sales revenue. 4th quarter, I was number 1 in the region in terms of sales revenue. And I wasn't working full time. I was still full time in school. So I was doing this on 15 to 20 hours. And they actually invited me and labeled me as a champion. And that's the highest honor that you get working at TD, where they fly the top 1% of people out on an all-inclusive vacation for a couple of days where you celebrate. You meet the CEO, the district vice president, the senior vice presidents. And that was my first time really going on a plane, going to an all-inclusive resort. So for me, this was all mind-boggling. And talking to my district vice president at the time, he wanted to set a roadmap for me to ultimately become a branch manager within 3 to 4 years. And I found that unheard of because I would have been under 25 at the time. And he introduced me to another individual who was on the same path. His name was Kevin. And ultimately, he was on the same path. And he ultimately did become a branch manager. And don't quote me on this. I want to say at the time, he was the youngest TD branch manager in Canada.
Oh, wow.
So that was what I was looking forward to. That's ultimately what I was looking forward to. And that was what was next in my professional journey.
So first of all, congratulations on that, because I think a lot of people can see going into the corporate space after being in the entrepreneurial world as taking a step back, you know? But you jumping into the corporate space, it sounds like you took that as an opportunity to really continue and propel yourself forward. But what made you decide not to continue in that space? Like, what made you say, I don't want to stay at TD when you have this amazing path?
My roommates. Every single day when I would post about the achievements, I would post about being number 1 in sales, they were just always in my ear. You're doing this great work. However, your salary is going to be the same as somebody else's that's in the same position as you, that's maybe in the bottom 1%. You could be bigger than this. You could do something else. You have a gift here. You're really talented. And I never took it seriously. I always wanted to be a TD lifer. I wanted to ultimately become a branch manager. That was my goal in life. And then after getting promotions, I ended up at another branch. And I believe we talked about this offline, but your manager could make or break you.
100%.
They can make or break your experience. So I was at one branch and I had a great management team and I loved it. It was so great. The culture was amazing. And there was a lot of younger individuals like me that were working as advisors at that branch. And I shifted to another branch and it was a complete opposite. I was probably the only one in my 20s working at that branch. I had nobody to relate to. I had nobody to talk to. And it felt like work. It didn't really feel fun. And then they opened up an organization at Brock. At the time, it was called, at Brock University, it was called BioLink.
Okay.
It was an entrepreneurship hub where it was a incubator. You came up with an idea. They helped shape your idea, put you in situations to get funding, to acquire customers. And that's when I had my idea for a marketing agency. So I had a marketing agency and it was called Leads App, where we would ultimately run Facebook ads for people. leverage automated chatbots, Google Ads to help individuals, businesses acquire clientele. We did that and we scaled that. And at a certain point, I realized, okay, most of the clients that we're getting are real estate and mortgage professionals. Why don't we X everybody out? We don't want to spread ourselves so broad. It's much easier to scale vertically than horizontally and only focus on the real estate professionals and mortgage side. So then we rebranded the company from Leads App to Canada Homes. And we positioned it as a Canada-wide digital marketing agency specializing in customer acquisition for real estate and mortgage professionals. We were able to scale that. This is horrible, but I was skipping class to walk in to different RE/MAX offices, just like I walked into TD and pitch my services and pitch what we do. And we even started off saying, hey, we'll do this for free for a couple of months. You just pay us for ad spend. And if you get results and we actually deliver, then you could pay us for future months and we could get you on a retainer. That was our strategy because we were new. We had no connections in the industry. A few agents gave us a shot. Our first agent that gave us a shot, I believe her name was Tina. She enjoyed the services. She introduced us to a gentleman by the name of Jonathan Scott. Jonathan Scott was our first client. He would meet me in person all the time at the Penn Center. He introduced me to a guy by the name of Greg Skykes, and then it just became a referral game. We continued to grow to the point where big sharks that were already in the space, they started calling my phone saying, hey, you're stealing our customers. What's going on? And then they threatened to sue, but there was nothing to sue. And then after they said they wanted to acquire us, we continued to say no. There was about 3 different offers over a period of 6 to 9 months where they actually wanted to acquire us. And let's fast forward to, I had 3 roommates or 3 founders on this company.
And they were your roommates as well?
Yes.
Love that.
Yes. So one was living in Ottawa, one was living in London, and I was living in Brampton. We all lived in St. Catharines, but that's where we were from. Yep. And we were about to graduate, so it was going to be our last year.
So you're doing all of this in your last year?
Yes.
Amazing.
While still full-time in university, while I'm in my last year. So ultimately, it made sense that one was going back to London, one was going back to Ottawa, I was going back to Brampton, and we weren't going to be living together anymore. So we actually took the offer, and that was our first exit. We sold the company.
That is phenomenal. And then, so I have so many questions, but the very first thing that I've thought of is, it sounds like you're approaching business very much like a sport.
Definitely.
Do you resonate with that? Is that like also how you see business, kind of like a sport?
I do. You want to win. You don't want to be second or third. You want to be first.
Absolutely. And then so and my second question is, how did you navigate that exit? You know, if it's your very first exit and you're getting that very first deal, what does that look like?
Now, knowing everything that I know, it probably wasn't the best option to take that deal. But at the time, it made a lot of sense. It was a figure that none of us have ever really seen before. We were all just kids, I guess you could say. But actually now knowing the things that I know now in terms of doing due diligence, bringing offers to other competitors, saying this is what we have on the table, what will you do, and kind of using them as leverage on each other. But I didn't have that knowledge beforehand. Yeah. So we ultimately took the first offer that was available. We didn't negotiate at all. So yeah.
It's very much also problem solving. Like a lot of what I'm hearing that you're doing in each of these different scenarios is identifying problems and solving them for people. And all of these different things kind of culminate into this larger experience with Hutsy. So maybe you can share with us what happened next.
Definitely. So to piggyback off your point, business is just solving problems. Everything is a solution to a problem that you have. So in terms of what happened next, I graduated. I wasn't going to go back into corporate. I had my first exit. So what next? What could I do? What do I know? What worked for me in university? In the summertime, we were subleasing homes and having other people re-rent them out. Why don't we do this on the professional level? Why don't I move downtown Toronto, which is right beside Brampton? And I did the exact same thing. I partnered up with landlords that were renting their units out. And this was 2019. Hey, you have your 1-bedroom apartment downtown Toronto for $2,000 a month. What if I tell you I could put this on Airbnb and we could make you $2,500 a month, and everything that we make on top of that will split the revenue together? And we did this. We had a few use cases, and then we got to a point where we had multiple different condos across the downtown Toronto area. We called this rental arbitrage, and it was working really well. Everything was great until it wasn't. Until 2020, and then COVID-19 hit. Yep. Travel stopped. The city started placing rules and regulations around Airbnb. It felt that everybody in the Airbnb space was jumping out of window in terms of trying to exit their portfolio. And luckily enough, we were able to sell our portfolio to another individual who had a much bigger portfolio than ours, as he thought this COVID thing would only be a couple of weeks or a couple of months. I haven't spoken to the individual since. I don't know what happened to him now, but I could imagine it must have been a tough time for him. But after that, we realized, okay, we have an excess amount of capital from exiting Canada Homes #1 in this real estate business. A lot of people are losing their jobs. People need cash. What could we do? So we got into the alternative lending space. So we did short-term microloans starting at, let's say, $500. We would give somebody a $500 loan. They'd pay us back in about 6 biweekly payments of $125 and some change. So that works out to $750.11.
And what year was this? Sorry.
This was 2020.
Okay, sorry. Yep. Keep going.
After 6 months. After 6 weeks, apologies.
Yep.
So over time, this worked for us, and then I didn't feel that it was ethical. I felt that this was almost the same rates as predatory payday lenders. So what would we be able to do to position ourselves to actually offer these loans for free to people so they don't have to pay this interest rate? And I thought, why not start a bank? Why not start an online digital bank or something along those lines? That's all I know. The only ever corporate job I had in my life was in banking. That's what I know. Banking, for the most part, they take people's deposits that you put in your checking and savings account, they loan it out to other people, they get interest, and they make their own money. So I thought, why couldn't we do the same thing? So that's always been in the back of my mind for a couple of years. And then fast forward, and then let's rewind.
Okay.
When I was at Brock University in BioLink, there was one entrepreneur I always looked up to. His name was Waleed. He had a company by the name of Zoom. Now they're called Zoom Niagara.
Okay.
And to put it into perspective, they had more of a market share than Uber in Niagara. When we wanted to call a taxi or anything, we didn't call a taxi. We didn't call an Uber. I don't even think Lyft was around at that point, or in Canada. We called Zoom.
Okay.
And one day I was on LinkedIn. This was probably 2021 or 2, if my memory serves me correctly. He posted on LinkedIn that he just submitted an application to go on to Dragon's Den. And I'm like, wow, I know Waleed could do it. He could do anything. He's amazing. I look up to him. Then I thought, why not me? Why can't I apply for Dragon's Den? We didn't have a product. We didn't have revenue. I thought it would just be for fun. I submitted an application. It was a very intensive process. And after a couple of weeks, I get an email from a Dragon's Den producer saying, we love this model. We love this vision.
Wow.
We'd like to talk to you. Had a conversation with them. Luckily, one of the producers, he worked for another online digital bank by the name of Monzo. So he knows about the potential and growth for scale for something like this. And I believe he was our champion. I don't know this for a fact, but if we're pre-product, pre-revenue, it's very unlikely that we would make it to the show unless we had a champion. So I would imagine he was the one that championed us. We got a second call, and the second call I was imagining them telling me, love this idea. When you have a product, come back and we'll get you on the show. But it was, no, we love this. We actually want you to pitch on the show. And I was so surprised. I've never seen anybody pitch on Dragon's Den with no product or revenue or anything. So fast forward about 6 to 9 months later, when I actually had my pitch, all I did was practice that whole entire summer. I realized, okay, the Dragons on Dragon's Den, there was Michelle Ramino, there was Wes Hall, there was Arlene Dickinson, and the others were all great individuals, such as Menji.
Yeah.
I knew Arlene is in consumer, beverage. There was Vincent, I believe his name is, he's in wine. Wes Hall, he focuses on Black, diverse entrepreneurs, so let's tailor the pitch towards him. Michelle Ramino, she's another fintech individual. She owned a company by the name of Clearbank at that time. Now they're called Clearco. She's another fintech individual. So let me just cater my pitch towards these two individuals and scratch everybody else out. So that's ultimately what we did. We didn't have a product, so I told a story. I told an emotional story that people could relate to. 45% of Canadians live paycheck to paycheck. 2 to 3 million Canadians are using payday lending services annually. Payday lending services make $2+ billion in fees from individuals, and most of them are coming from minority communities, Black, Indigenous, people of color, and then they're just trapped in this life cycle of debt that they really couldn't get out of. And I wanted Hutsy to be the online digital financial institution to solve that by offering early payroll access. If you bank with us and you have your direct deposit set up with us, we could give you your paycheck a couple days early, or we could give you early payroll access whenever you need it, because we know if we have your direct deposit, we win your business. We're your primary bank of choice. So ideally, that's what we did, as it's a very capital intensive process to open something like this up. So we asked for $500,000 to really get started, and thankfully we were able to close the deal with Wes Hall and his team. He resonated with the vision, and he gave us $500,000 to get started.
So that's a phenomenal story for so many reasons, because there are so many people out there with amazing product ideas. Maybe they haven't joined it with a story yet, so there's a nugget there for them, but also them not actually just going for it, not making the application. The fact that you said, why not me, is so huge, because so many people are out there thinking, hey, I'm non-technical, I can't do this. But if you have a product idea and a story and the drive, it's possible.
Absolutely. I want to say this message to everybody out there. 2 people can have the exact same idea. And Danny could present her idea in a much better and articulate way than me. And we could pitch 2 different investors, and Danny will potentially get much more capital at a much larger valuation than I'll get, just because you were able to articulate it in a much more efficient manner than me. And a valuation, for those of you that don't know, means what they value your company at. So let's say, hypothetically speaking, you were looking to raise $500,000 and the valuation of your company was $1 million, they would own 50% of your company. But if the valuation was, let's say, $10 million, then they would only own 5% of the company. So for you as a startup founder, your goal is to give up as least equity as you possibly can. And as an investor, you want as much equity as you possibly can. So you have to work together and find that happy medium.
And so because you didn't have a product, how did they define the valuation of your company? And how did you approach that deal?
That is a great question. So me personally, I was extremely ready. I had my financials ready. I understood how much it would cost for us to open this, what partners we would need to have to do this. I already got letter of intents from the partners, from our sponsor bank, from our payment processor, from our card manufacturer. So I was already, and I had a background in banking, working at TD. So the more experience you have in an industry, the better it is for you. Because ultimately, what you want to do is de-risk a possible investment. And as much as you could de-risk it, the higher valuation you will have, and the more an investor would feel confident in investing in your company.
In so many ways, it sounds like they were also investing in you, in your ability to put that structure together, and your ability to have that clarity about how to structure the business. And that's why I love your message about the fact that anyone can do this. If we can get over some of our internal struggles, our internal challenges, and get really clear about what the outcome is, what I'm getting from you is that it's possible. We need to be able to communicate it and then follow through.
You're 100% on the money. In the earliest of early stages, like we were, investors invest in you as the person. Wes Hall invested in Tefari Bailey first and the idea for Hutsy second. Because if you're investing in a winner, this individual is going to make something happen.
Yep, absolutely. And then so what has it been like, getting mentorship from Wes Hall? What's the investment process been like? Share the journey, kind of that post-investment experience.
For sure, most definitely. The way I see it is you have 2 kind of investors. You have money and you have smart money.
Okay.
And what an example of smart money is someone that could provide value to help the trajectory and accelerate the process for you. Wes Hall, he's somebody that is smart money. As any introduction we need in Canada or the United States, if we wanted to partner up with a major financial institution, if we wanted to partner up with a corporate entity or anybody, chances are Wes has the CEO's phone number in his phone, and he's able to make those connections right away. Sometimes I'll just get an email from Wes saying, hey, there's a CEO or COO from this organization. I want you guys to meet to see what can happen.
Yeah.
And he's able to make things like that happen.
Phenomenal. And then when it comes to actually meeting all of these people, a lot of it is now you're building relationships, right? What character trait would you say that every entrepreneur or business owner needs to know as they're stepping into this space? Because there's the strategy side, there's the business side, there's the people side. You know, you go from all of this previous experience to now being thrust into the public eye. What were some of the character traits that you believe supported you to continue to flourish from there into the Hutsy that exists today?
Number one, manage your emotions. Secondly, you're only as good as your team. So at the end of the day, you want to hire and bring on A-plus players on your team that are smarter than you in certain areas. My CTO is much smarter than me when it comes to the technical side. Our head of customer experience is a much better communicator and better at nurturing relationships with customers. You can't do everything yourself, and you don't want to hire people that you are better on at specific things. Niches are riches. So you want to bring on people that don't have overlapping skill sets to you.
This is so important because there are so many solopreneurs who think that they need to do everything on their own. But what you're speaking about is really nurturing a team. What's your approach to leadership, and what advice would you give to a solopreneur who wants to build a team?
The advice I would give to a solopreneur that wants to build a team, or a leader that wants to lead in a more efficient, better way, is to defer. Always defer to experts. Offline, we were in another room and you were asking me on input and things you wanted to touch on. And if you notice, I was very nonchalant, saying, you handle this. You're the expert. I'm going to defer to you. What you think will be best to talk about is much better than what I think will be best to talk about, because you're a professional host. You do this. You know what gets the clicks and what gets the views, not me. So always defer to people in power.
Ah, beautiful. That makes sense. So you're really empowering people to be their best selves when they're on your team, and kind of seeing the fullness of their light and their strength and their skill set, which I can just imagine creates a team dynamic that's, full of A players who are champions in and of their own, like in their own right. How would you describe your team? What is the team structure of Hutsy, and how would you describe the culture at Hutsy?
Great question. So how would I describe the team culture and structure at Hutsy? A small group of A-plus players that would run circles around C or D players. A small team of 6 that manages a user base of 20,000 plus individuals. And on the side, we have the AI automates a lot of the processes for us. Everything is automated. We're a software-driven product, so not a lot of human capital needs to be there. So ideally, we have me that oversees everything. I manage growth, I manage partnerships, and I manage our financials, our key performance indicators, our unit economics, and things of that nature. We have our technical individuals, CTO, senior software developer, that's handling everything on the application, on the website, feature requests, technical support, and things of that nature. A product manager that's just really the voice and the glue between our customers and our tech team. So we do have a small team that are extremely niche and experts in their field, and are A-plus players that give 110% every single day.
When you look at Hutsy online, I would never imagine that it's 6 people behind that large engine. You know, and if you look at the growth of Hutsy over the last few years, I think you'd said it was 30% growth. Was it not even year over year, month over month?
Yeah, month over month. For the past couple of quarters, it's been 30% month over month as we made a pivot in our business model. As I mentioned, we started off as a debit card that builds credit to help people access early payroll access. As we scaled it to many, many users, there was something I noticed.
Yep.
A lot of people were getting overdraft fees, NSF fees, late fees. And you know, those NSF fees are expensive, $45 a piece. And if you get 3 of those in a single day, that could be over $120 on any given day that you're paying. So we said, okay, maybe what our clients need is not another bank account when they already have so many. Maybe what they need is a way to avoid these overdraft fees, avoid these late payment fees? How could we leverage AI to do so? So we made a pivot in the model, and we use AI to automatically cover your reoccurring bills when your balance is low. That way you don't get hit with overdraft, late fees, credit hits, or things of that nature. Because think about it. You miss a bill, you get hit with a $45 NSF fee from the bank. You may get a late charge from the service provider, depending on who it is. More than likely, they're going to report it to a credit bureau that you missed that payment. And then your credit score is going to take a hit, unfortunately. So there's a lot of dominoes that fall once you miss that payment. So we figured, okay, if we could use AI to detect when this is going to happen, automatically pay the bill for you, and then take it out when you get paid so you don't hit those fees, we're saving you at least $45 to $50 plus a credit hit.
So tell me about that idea. How did that idea come up? Do you guys sit in a boardroom? Does it come to you in a dream? Like, how do you think of, a use case like that?
Just by talking to customers. We're building this product out for customers. So all I really do is talk to them and see what their pain points are. Just if I rewind back to that meeting I had with the property management team on the snow removal side, talking, listening, not saying much, understanding the problems, coming up with a solution. Same thing on the Hutsy side. Tons of thousands of users, talking to them. If we notice a lot of users are getting billed monthly from these NSF and overdraft fees, and if we're talking to them and they all have the same pain point, what can we better do to build a solution? And that's exactly what we've done.
I love what you shared there because, it's music to my ears also as a marketer, because a lot of people confuse the advertising or what they see as the ad or the story as the strategy. But the marketing strategy is really defining the market and talking to the people and really figuring out what they need. And that is such an elegant solution that you've created to solve the problem for that market. And it's working. It's growing. People are buying it. Maybe you can share a little bit about what the growth has been since you've adopted this model.
Definitely. So ever since we've adopted this model a couple of quarters ago, as I've mentioned, we've been growing at a rate of about 30% month over month. We've had a few major financial institutions reach out to us to want to partner up and say, hey, our LMI clients, and by LMI, I mean low, moderate income users are going through the same situation. Maybe we could partner up where we would send these users directly to you and we would pay for their annual subscription. And from my point of view, it's like, why would they pay for the annual subscription for these clients? They're losing money. But on the flip side, it does make sense because if you're a customer and your bank is charging you all these overdraft and NSF fees, you're likely going to churn. By churn, I mean end your relationship with them and start somewhere else. And banks, they're in it for the long term. They want you to be in a good financial situation so you could start investing with them, so you could start getting loans with them, whether that's a mortgage loan, a car loan. There's just get a credit card with them. There's so much other business that the bank wants to do with you. So they want your lifetime value to be extremely high as possible. And if these clients are churning at the end of the day, that's not the best for them. So they want to position these people for success. And that's why they're reaching out to partner up with an organization like us at Hutsy. And we're really excited for that.
And those partnerships are so important. A lot of people want to build those types of partnerships with these larger financial institutions, with these larger corporations. What would you say to a business owner who wants to partner with a larger company? How can they be ready for that conversation? And what do they need to do once they get that meeting?
I feel that this is plain, but I've been preaching this the whole time. Identify the problem, find a solution. The problem that they have is a lot of their LMI clients are getting hit with these overdraft fees. They're upset with the bank. They close their accounts and open up an account somewhere else. So that's a problem. How can we fix this problem for you? And how can we do it at scale?
Yep, that makes so much sense. What are some of the, key performance indicators that a business should be focused in on? So whether it's, revenue, unit economics, building out their acquisition funnels. What are some of the key elements that you believe have made Hutsy successful and that business owners who want to prepare to scale and be investment ready need to be focused on?
Great question. This is not a one-size-fits-all, as every business is different. We're a software as a service business, but what stays true, the variable that stays true, it's always going to be revenue. Because if you run out of cash, you're not going to be able to sustain and stay operational.
Yeah.
So number one, what are your customer acquisition channels? What's it costing you to acquire a customer? What's the lifetime value of a customer? Does all of that make sense? Number one, if it's costing you $100 to acquire a customer through whatever channels you have, whether it's Facebook, Google, partnerships, whatever that may be, but that customer is only worth $50 to you throughout the lifetime of that relationship, you're negative $50 for every client. However, if it's costing you $100 to acquire a customer, but that customer is worth $1,000 to you throughout the lifetime of that relationship, you're going to be plus $900 for every client that you get, which is extremely favorable for you. So really dig deep and understand those numbers and find at least one acquisition channel, an automated, scalable, repeatable process for customer acquisition.
Yep. And
understand what bucket you're in. If you're in a bucket where your client is less than $2,000 for you over their annual lifetime value, it doesn't make sense to have a sales channel. You need an automated channel, whether that's Facebook ads, whether that's Meta ads, whether that's partnerships with other organizations to get those customers in, because you can't really afford to have a sales rep closing those clients at a 10 to 20% conversion rate with the margins being so low.
Yep.
So you want to find partners that could get you clientele. A good example is Owner. Canadian businesses that open accounts with Owner. Ultimately, you could register your business in a day within a few hours. You pay a fee of X amount of dollars, and they have a partnership with RBC where after you create your account, you paid X amount of dollars. If you open up a bank account with RBC, you will get that money back and then some. Or at least that's what it was back then when we registered.
Yep.
And it makes complete sense
It
because
does,
that's an automated, scalable, repeatable process for customer acquisition for the Royal Bank of Canada. And they have a fixed customer acquisition cost, whether let's say that's $200. And you know the average business account is going to be worth, let's call it $20,000 throughout the lifetime value. So you know you have your unit economics are upwards of 10 to 1.
And so would you say, so first of all, that makes so much sense, you know, really getting clear about your numbers, really getting clear about how revenue is coming in, what the cost is to acquire a customer, all of the different acquisition channels. Where did you learn this? You know, along the way, it sounds like, you know, you were, you started your own businesses, you're with a group of other entrepreneurs. Where did you learn this? And if someone wants to figure out these numbers, where would you suggest that they go?
I couldn't tell you one place where I learned all of this. They have a saying, if you put in at least 10,000 hours into anything, you could hope to become a master, or you could master it. I definitely want to say I put in my 10,000 hours when it comes to talking to smart people. Using YouTube University, Google University, as I would say, you could search anything and just learning from your mistakes.
Yeah.
I would definitely say that. There's business and entrepreneurship is already hard. So if you could do things that'll position you for success, do it. Launch quickly. Don't focus too much on the future. Forget the 5-year financial forecast, especially if you're in year one. Just focus on month to month or maximum 12-month forecasts.
That's golden for you to share, because I think that we can get so caught up into the future. But what you're saying is really get clear about your market, understand right now, and build something that can scale and grow. So where's Hutsy at now? And what's in the future for Hutsy and for you and your team?
Great question. So in terms of where we're at now, team of 6 servicing 20,000 clients. The goal for me personally, or the goal for us as a company, we have a 3 by 3 by 3 by 2 by 2 rule.
Okay.
And it's very common for SaaS, and by SaaS, I mean software as a service. After you get to $1 million in ARR, which stands for annual recurring revenue, and what I mean by that, hypothetically speaking, we service $10 monthly subscription fee equals $120 annually. Okay. So for every one client we have, our ARR is $120.
Okay.
So once you get to that $1 million in ARR, the goal is to triple the next year and get to $3 million in ARR. And the goal after that would be to triple again and get to $9 million in annual recurring revenue. Another triple from $9 million would be $27 million in annual recurring revenue. And for the next 2 years, you'd like to double that. So go from 24 to 54. And then in year 5, from $54 million in revenue to $108 million in revenue. And then you hit unicorn status.
Yes.
And what we mean by unicorn status is where you have a technology company that's valued at over $1 billion. And the rule of thumb is if you could get to $100 million in annual recurring revenue, you could do just that.
I love that as a goal for you. That is so exciting. And I have a question. It's that you have to scale by 3 times, multiple times. How does a company approach scale? What does it mean to be prepared to scale at that level for you and for Hutsy?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, short-term thinking for me, the strategies that we use to scale from 1 million to 3 million won't be the same strategies that we use to scale from 9 million to 27 million.
Yeah.
So just about being honest and open in terms of where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Our plan for me, as I mentioned, I always like to defer to experts that have been there and done that. So once we hit one level, it probably makes sense to hire a head of growth that has scaled from that space to another space and get the strategies that they would like to use to help scale. So really deferring to other people that have been there and done that to join the team to help us along the way. Because if I gave you an answer right now, it wouldn't be transparent in terms of how we envision going from A to B. So right now, the acquisition channel that we have to go from A to B is working. We'll know we'll get from A to B. And that acquisition channel will probably get us from B to C, but it won't get us from C to D.
You know what's so powerful about that? It's that same leadership quality, that character in terms of being able to identify talent, inspire that talent, and play on the court with the players as you're growing. It feels like you're pulling a lot from those very early experiences, you know, in ball. And the reason that I want to keep pressing on this is, again, we have so many nephews, cousins, younger brothers, sons who are in sports, and they don't even know at this point that they're building these skills that can be used and transferred for many other avenues overall. So that's exciting to hear. How do you identify that talent? How do you build trust within your team? And what would you say to a business owner who's afraid to put that much trust in other people?
Great question. So how you identify that talent at a certain stage, you're not a generalist anymore. You want to niche down and focus on one thing. Mm-hmm. So if I have somebody that's a generalist in front-end development or back-end development or full-stack development, and we need that specific role for the company, we're going to look to hire the best of the best that's available. And even more important than somebody being the best of the best, what I mean by that is fit. I would rather somebody who fits with our culture, who was cool and nonchalant, straight to the point like we are, compared to somebody who is maybe an even better front-end software developer, but the culture fit isn't right.
Why is that important?
Because I've been through that. I've been through that working at my time at the bank in my last stop where I don't think the culture was appropriate. And that led me to be off my game. That led me to leave the organization. That led me to spread my own wings and fly.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want the same thing to happen within my organization.
Totally understand that. That makes sense. And it really is about people at the end of the day, relationships. And the fit is so important. If the outcome is there without the joy, without the relationships, without the building, without the everyday team player feeling empowered, it doesn't make sense.
Agreed.
So as we close, I just wanted to talk a little bit about you and your achievements. You know, you really are, I do want to take a moment to give you your flowers.
Thank you.
You really are someone that, and we talked about this earlier, I don't know if inspiration's an emotion. It's really a paradigm shift. You're helping many people to think about business leadership in a different way, about tech entrepreneurship in a different way. You know, you being a non-technical founder as well and being able to navigate that with such elegance, you know, you being able to lead teams, you being a young Black man in this space is so powerful. You know, you've earned a number of accolades and awards and been recognized by Brock University. You've been recognized by a number of different accelerators. You know, what's next for Tefari Bailey?
Thank you so much for the kind words. Before anything, Danny, you're amazing. I want to give you your flowers as well. I've seen you everywhere on all of the major networks, especially focused on Black, people of color, and minorities. So I do want to give you your flowers for sure, most definitely. In terms of what's next for me, Tefari Bailey at Hutsy, continuing to grow. We're at a point where we've launched our product. It's up and running. There's no secret sauce. It's just continuing to grow, hit that 3 by 3 by 3 by 2 by 2 metric. Ideally, I would like to exit after that and then be on the other side of the table as an investor, preferably in private equity, starting my own firm. When I think about it and I look into the numbers, as I mentioned earlier, I feel that real estate makes the most self-made millionaires in this world, and private equity makes the most self-made billionaires in this world. And when I look at the two individuals of color that I really, really do look up to in Canada, I think of Wes Hall and I think of Michael Leachin. And they made their wealth through private equity. Wes Hall with We Shall Investments, it's a private equity firm. They invested in Hutsy Financial. Michael Leachin, billionaire, the richest black man in Canada. Portland Holdings, it's a private equity firm. So I think if I could do something like that, whether I start in the venture capital arm and then move to private equity, leveraging all the experiences that I have as an operator, I will be able to identify the right opportunities. I'll be able to help scale and grow and be smart money, like I said that Wes Hall is.
Yes.
And ultimately fulfill my purpose of helping the next generation of entrepreneurs.
That's beautiful. And you already are helping the next generation of entrepreneurs in so many ways. Question for you. How can we as a community support you and show up for you?
In terms of how the community could help Hutsy and show up for me personally, really just sharing the wins we have. If we make a post online, if we're on a CBC or City TV or a Danny-led interview or podcast, even something as simple as sharing this podcast, that helps out.
Absolutely. I want to say, is there anything else that you'd want to share with the audience before we close?
Anything I'd want to share with the audience before we close is really just take the chance. Take the chance. Never say never. Don't limit yourself. I didn't think we had an opportunity to close that snow removal deal while I was in university. We got the offer. We got the contract. We didn't do it because we didn't have the capacity to do so. When it came to applying for Dragon's Den, there was no way I thought we'd make it, and we were pre-product, pre-revenue. We made it. There was no way I thought we'd get the investment. We were pre-product, pre-revenue. We got it. There was Startup Fest in Montreal. That's the largest pitch competition in Canadian history. There was thousands upon thousands of startups pitching for an award. No way I thought we would win the award. We won the $100,000 Black Entrepreneurship Prize. We won the Best of the Fest Audience Prize. We took home both awards. When it comes to Brock University, there's thousands of students that go in and out of that institution every single year. They have their Distinguished Alumni Award. There's no way I thought we'd win that award. They selected me for that award. When it comes to the League of Innovators, the Youth Entrepreneur of the Year, they selected me for the Entrepreneur of the Year and the Black Entrepreneur of the Year award.
Yeah.
So just by taking the opportunity to do these things, don't limit yourself. If there's a grant that you see available, don't think, oh, I probably won't get this grant. You never know. Just take the opportunity available, network with like-minded individuals, be around people you want to be like, and don't be afraid to ask for mentorship, because at the end of the day, this applies to everybody. Think to where you are right now. Take a step back and rewind 10 years. If you knew everything that you knew right now and you could fast forward, you would be where you are much faster with all the information that you know now.
So true.
And that comes with having a mentor that's been there and done that. They'll be able to accelerate your process. So that's one message I would leave to everyone, whether you want to be an entrepreneur or just in life in general, anything you want to do.
I need to say this because I think it's important because you brought it up. Wes Hall. How has Wes Hall impacted your life and your career? How has that relationship and that mentorship impacted your life and your career?
Yeah, Wes Hall, he's honestly so inspiring. Every time I see anything he's doing on LinkedIn, it's always a new accomplishment. Doing things with Mark Carney, now the counselor of the University of Toronto, the first Black Dragon ever, a private equity firm. It's so inspiring, and I'm thankful to have him as a mentor, as an investor, as a partner, and I will continue to do my part to grow and make him proud.
Beautiful. We're all so proud of you. You know, you shared your relationship with your family, which is beautiful, relationship with your grandmother, which is beautiful. I'm sure everyone is very proud of you. And I can say that however we can support, we are here to support you. Thank you for so freely and openly sharing all of this knowledge. Tefari came through and dropped gems, true gems. This is an episode where you have to go back, you have to pause. He might have brought up some certain, concepts that you need to research, but it's worth it. It's worth it. And I'm definitely leaving this conversation with a paradigm shift, not just an emotional inspiration, but an understanding that it's possible. So thank you so much for being here, and stay tuned to meet so many other amazing Canadians who are really shaping the landscape and identity of Canada. Thank you for being on the show today, Tefari.
Thank you for having me, Danny. It was an honor and a privilege, as I've mentioned so many times.
Yes. This is the Other Canada podcast.